Welcome to the Korea Pro Podcast, your weekly guide to understanding the most pressing and complicated developments shaping South Korea. We're your hosts, Jungmin Kim,
John Lei,
and Joon Ha Park of Korea Pro.
Go beyond headlines as we explain not just what happened, but also what really matters and why it matters.
If you monitor South Korea for work or just trying to keep up, you're in the right place.
This is the Korea Pro Podcast.
Hello, listeners, and welcome back to another episode of the Korea Pro Podcast. It is now Thursday, December 11th. It's around 5 p.m. And boy, do we have a lot of economic news that we can start out with right away from the very get-go.
Right, so South Korea's labor market demand, it fell to its lowest level since the Asian financial crisis in November, with the ratio of new job openings to job seekers dropping to 0.43%, according to Labor Ministry data. Could you tell us a little more about that?
Well, we do need to look at the overall numbers. Now, if we look at the overall numbers, job employment numbers are looking up. Like the Labor Ministry said that about 225,000 new jobs were created. And so, again, all those jobs numbers look great. But as you pointed out, if we look at the actual numbers for especially the youth unemployment, especially if you look at new jobs being open, as you pointed out, the ratio of new job openings to the people who are, to job seekers, that's fallen to 0.43.
Sure.
And so that basically means that the hiring has essentially frozen, especially for young people. The young people's unemployment numbers have been actually been going up for the past 8 months now. And so this is just really bad times to be a young person in South Korea these days.
What does it mean for the manufacturing sector?
Well, the manufacturing sector, along with the construction industry, well, they've been at a downturn for months now. And so really, when you think about the construction sector, it hasn't really recovered from COVID either.
Right.
And so we're looking at a real big crunching slowdown of the South Korean economy. And this also pairs with what the South Korean corporations have been saying. They have been saying that they also, about 60% said that they either have no plans to make new investments for the upcoming year, or they might actually be paring back their investment plans. Now, a lot of this goes back to what's been going on in South Korea domestically. We have to talk about the Yellow Envelope Act, which has also made it much more easier for labor unions to go on strike. And we've also got to talk about the safety protocols that the administration has been pursuing because of all of these industrial and accidental
Comes
deaths
into
that have
effect
occurred.
in March next year?
Yes, it does.
Right, yeah.
And because of all of these domestic things that are happening at the same time, while South Korea has also said that it's going to be investing a lot more in the U.S., these corporations are not quite sure as to what it's going to be like next year. And so they're paring back their investments, which has also impacted employment numbers, and it will continue to impact employment numbers going into the next year as well.
Right. So in other economic news, we had the Fed cut, which narrows the rate gap, bringing South Korea a bit of a modest relief. So I think the U.S. central bank rates cut has given a little bit of breathing room, narrowing the policy rate gap between the two countries. So I think they lowered the benchmark federal funds rate by a quarter point to between 3.5 and 3.75% in line with market expectations.
Well, that is true. It does reduce the yield gap between the Federal Reserve and the BOK. But that doesn't really change a lot of things on the ground because the Federal Reserve cut, that was already priced in. This was expected. The U.S. economy has been showing signs of slowdowns because of all the tariffs. And so the markets have already priced in and already expected the Federal Reserve to actually cut interest rates. What really matters for South Korea right now is that, again, I've been saying this for weeks now, the BOK doesn't really have a lot of room to maneuver. And it's caught between a rock and a hard place because, for one thing, we also have to talk about how the Korean won has been depreciating.
Yeah, that's what I was just about to say.
It's been depreciating because of all this money going out. And it's also because of all the housing speculation that is still not yet been chained despite the October 15 regulations that the South Korean government imposed. And so it really cannot raise interest rates. It cannot really lower interest rates. It's stuck where it is right now. And so it's really stuck in a position where the BOK is thinking, okay, no matter what we do is a lose-lose situation. So yes, the Federal Reserve cut the interest rates by 0.25%. So theoretically, it should make the South Korean economy a bit more attractive to invest in. But because of all of the structural issues that the South Korean economy is facing at the moment, it doesn't really have that much of a big impact for South Korea.
So upside potential remains quite strained, right?
That would be one way of putting it, yeah. And speaking of what's been going on in North America, the other North American country, Mexico, has also imposed 35 to 50% tariffs on all countries that don't have a free trade agreement with Mexico. Now, a lot of this was aimed at China and also India. But because South Korea also doesn't have a free trade agreement with Mexico, South Korea has also been hit
Indeed.
with that tariff. Now, these tariffs have also been, we've all seen these tariffs coming from a mile away. The Mexican government has been talking about this since, I believe, July or maybe August, about wanting to impose these kind of tariffs.
Mm-hmm.
Now, the South Korean government's, the Trade Ministry, has said that it hopes that it will be able to maintain whatever Mexican policies that there are that helps exporters.
Right.
But what's really driving Mexico is not so much that it wants to sever ties with South Korea. It doesn't really want to, but it's prioritizing its relations with the United States. And that's because we have to talk about the USMCA. That's
Right.
the United States-Mexico-Canada Free Trade Agreement.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Now, when Donald Trump renegotiated the USMCA, Washington insisted that it will review the trade deal in July. So only after 1 year.
Mm-hmm.
And one of America's biggest complaints about the USMCA was that a lot of Asian countries are able to export their goods to Mexico and allows Mexico to use that USMCA to actually re-export those goods to the United States and Canada. And because the United States is really worried, is really obsessively worried about its trade deficits with other countries, they really want Mexico to clamp down on this. And so Mexico is right now faced, again, like many other countries, a series of bad options. It can upset its Asian partners or it can upset Washington. And considering its proximity with the United States, of course, Mexico has prioritized the United States and deprioritized South Korea.
Speaking of what Seoul can do then, so Seoul and Mexico City, they have, from what I gather, an investment guarantee agreement. So that is the most basic framework, I believe, but between trading partners, but they don't have any defense against these tariffs. So what is something that Seoul can do with Mexico City here?
South Korea is pretty much out of luck.
Mm-hmm.
Now, the only real things that South Korean industries can do is one of two things. It can either absorb more of these costs, or it can really double down on moving productions to Mexico or to the United States or Canada. But those are going to have a lot of costs attached to them. Because if we are talking about absorbing these costs, that's a death sentence to the automotive industry. The automotive industry's profit margins are razor thin. A 35% tariff rate, I don't think the automotive sector can actually absorb those costs.
Right.
But if they decide to double down on offshoring to Mexico, for example, that's going to have another huge impact domestically. Because we have to remember, again, the Yellow Envelope Act. The way that the law has been changed, now workers can say, hey, all of these investments that are going overseas are having a business impact here at home and are impacting their well-being, their incomes. And so with all of this going on, it's just nothing but bad news.
But on the bright side, of course, also in Latin America, so Peru, they signed a framework agreement to acquire 54 K2 Black Panther tanks made by Hyundai Rotem and 141 K808 wheeled armor vehicles from South Korea, so totaling to almost 200 vehicles.
Now, one does not really think of Peru and immediately think that's a huge market, but the president and his predecessor have always said that they want to expand South Korea's defense exports, want to become the fourth largest defense exporter, yada, yada, yada. And so every little bit counts, I suppose.
Yeah, I mean, it is the first sort of major entry for the K2 into a Latin American country. So it ends for Peru. The plus side is it does end decades of searching for a successor to its aging Soviet era, I think it's T-54 to 55 fleet. Of tanks, and also expands that domestic defense production with like a co-assembly deal with South Korea for these K2s. And for South Korea, it also positions the K2 now alongside Poland, Peru, and Turkey, I believe, who did information sharing as the sort of global export competitor for the tank sector to these Western and Russian MBTs. Now on to domestic. So there are quite a number of allegations involving the Unification Church, a religious group.
Unification Church, yeah.
Yes, so it is growing. Both parties, both of the major parties, including one cabinet minister, has resigned.
The Oceans Minister.
The Oceans Minister has resigned, and it is potentially about to hamstring the Lee Jae-myung administration and also its ruling party and also the opposition party and their political ambitions.
Now, the Unification Church, of course, has a lot of links with politicians in South Korea, in Japan, and the United States. But I'll be honest with you, when I first heard of the Unification Church when I was a kid, the only thing that really popped into my mind were all those pictures of mass weddings that they held at stadiums.
Yeah.
And the fact that they had these sermons or, I don't know if they're sermons, but actual congregations where people entered church carrying AR-15 rifles. And I know that for a fact that they also own the Washington Times publication. And so, you know, when I think of Unification Church, I think of, kooky people.
Right.
But the fact that they have so much influence in South Korean politics, and not just in South Korea, but also in Japan and the United States, it's just bizarre to me.
Right. So as the allegations stand, so they have been under investigation for suspicions that it provided illegal funds to conservative bloc lawmakers, especially from the PPP. But also top church officials have allegedly claimed that the church also has had illicit dealings with ruling Democratic Party lawmakers.
So they're basically saying that they're not going down alone. They're going to take as many people with them as possible.
Indeed. I mean, it's not both the Oceans Minister and also the Unification Minister who has also been reportedly accused of receiving these funds from the Unification Church. They both publicly denied it. And the Oceans Minister has resigned in order not to stain further the Lee Jae-myung cabinet. But of course, this Unification Church developments will keep going as long as the special counsel goes on. I believe the special counsel for the former First Lady, Kim Gun-hee, is going on until January. And effectively there, Kim Gun-hee is accused of the fact that she invited Unification Church members to join the ruling People Power parties in November 2022. So the special counsel is still investigating that. They've indicted the former PPP floor leader, I believe, Kwon Sung-dong, as someone that was involved in that. So it is still a political development that we need to keep our eyes on.
Moreover, the president himself has gotten involved. He has said that religious organizations that are involved in illegal activities should be dissolved. And of course, he did not actually name the Unification Church, but it was pretty clear what he meant. Now, I just said that whenever I think of the Unification Church, I think, kooky. But at the same time, it is still a religious organization. And for the presidents to actually come forward and say publicly that a religious organization should be dissolved, where, even if they had been involved in an illegal activity, that does raise a lot of concerns about freedom of association, freedom of speech. But yeah, that's something that's really not going to die down.
Right. And Lee's office has stated that he is set to accept the Oceans Minister's resignation letter. There's nothing that has come out just yet as of Thursday, 5 p.m. Regarding what President Lee is actually doing with that resignation letter. But there's still a lot of messaging that will be hearsay from both political parties on the special counsel, on these investigations that are going on. So we really do need to keep an eye on how these bribery scandals spill over.
Looking to stay informed about South Korea's fast-evolving political, business and cultural landscape? Join us on Korea Pro, the go-to resource for in-depth analysis expertly curated by top-tier professionals. And now you can pick the membership level that best suits your needs, thanks to our new subscription packages. Starting at just $199 annually, you can access daily analysis and our weekly podcast. Or try our premium membership package, which offers additional perks such as executive briefings, monthly reports and forecasts, networking receptions and event opportunities, as well as much, much more. To find the best fit for you, just head to signup.koreapro.org and become a member today.
Moving on, so week ahead, the top leader in Laos, the Laotian president, he will be visiting South Korea on December 14th, 15th for a summit with Lee Jae-myung and Wee Sung-lak, the national security advisor. He'll be heading to Washington next week to flesh out the terms of the joint fact sheet. with Washington's negotiators, the nuclear-powered submarines, the uranium enrichment deal, what have you.
All that fun stuff.
And all of this information will be sent to your inboxes in our week ahead newsletters by Monday, 2 p.m. So if you want to know more, please do subscribe.
Bye-bye.
And that's a wrap. Thanks for tuning in.
If you want to know more, sign up for our daily executive briefings. We'll brief you on all you need to know from the past 24 hours and why it matters, delivered to your inbox every morning.
If you want to stay ahead of the curve, sign up for Korea Pro to get a full package of insights, from daily expert analysis to profiles, month in review, week ahead, and more.
And until next time, I'm Jungmin Kim.
I'm Joon Ha Park.
And I'm John Lee, and we'll see you next time on the Korea Pro Podcast.